I was really upset when I figured out that I was addicted to sugar because I tried my entire life to make sure that I didn't engage anything that could possibly be addictive. But of course, the exception of drinking. But even when it came to drinking, I was really careful, moderate. I would never drink home just for the sake of drinking. That wasn't me. So you can imagine that when I figured out that I was addicted to sugar, it was like a punch in the face, right? Because I didn't know that it was a possibility. And then seeing it play out in front of me, because I had such a hard time to just not eat the thing, and I felt the repercussions, the withdrawal symptoms. I couldn't believe it. Now, when I look back and I'm truly honest with myself about my history with food, yeah, now I can see it that I often ate more than a serving of cookies or a serving of ice cream or a serving of chocolate. Like, not even just once in a while, like often. Like, I would even say more often than not, I ate more than a serving. And clearly, my weight reflected that, right? I was 70 plus pounds, probably more like 80 plus pounds overweight. So when I started keto and got my weight back under control, and of course I'm in the process of getting my health back to a good place, I truly thought that my surprises when it came to food were over, and clearly I was wrong. Back in 2018, I lost more than 70 pounds in 5 months, and I was really proud of myself. I did that using keto. And then in 2019, the world fell apart. Montreal was particularly strict in how they decided to manage this catastrophe. And so we were on lockdown, and that actually meant that we had a curfew, needed to be in the house by 8 o'clock at night. I typically work till 8 o'clock, so it meant that all possibility of social life for me, outside of Pat, was gone. But you need to keep in mind that Pat and I don't live together. So even seeing him was really, really difficult to accomplish. We're going to add to that my daughter at the time was 13, and she got just cut off from all of her friends. So now I'm managing a 13-year-old who's not happy because her social life is just fallen, and my social life has fallen, and it's stressful. Now, normally, when I'm stressed, I'll go for a ride on one of my devices and think things through and figure out how I'm going to solve the problem. Problem is that I couldn't go for a ride, I couldn't go see friends, I couldn't do the normal things that I would do when I'm stressed to try to figure out the problem. But B, I had no control of the problem. I didn't decide when the curfew was going to get lifted. I didn't decide when the kids would go back to school, because in Montreal, they actually closed the schools down. And this went on, not just for a week or two, which would have felt like a little vacation maybe. It went on for months. And then we had a break in the summer, and then it went on again the following year. Long story, I learned something about myself that I didn't like. I didn't like it at all. What I learned is that when I'm stressed and feeling painted into a corner, I want to solve that by eating something. I want to solve that by snacking, not even eating a meal, snacking. And that, well, it took me a little while to figure out that's what was happening, but that was a really, really hard thing for me to learn. I didn't stop doing keto, but what I did was I started to allow myself to eat nuts, right? Because nuts are keto friendly. And I was having a serving. Well, I wasn't being bad until I started having 2 servings, and then I started having more than 2. And then I started to realize that, okay, nuts are fun, but I can make these keto treats and desserts that they always talk about. And so now, because I wasn't opposed to making these keto treats, I was making those too. And why was this happening? It's happening because I wasn't happy. It was happening because life was chaotic and crazy. It was happening because I couldn't solve the problems for me or my daughter. I couldn't solve these things. They were still happening. Life wasn't looking the way that I wanted it to look. I didn't have control over my life. And I was coping by eating. I was coping by self-soothing with food. And that reawakened my addiction. So I wasn't just eating a serving of nuts or a serving of cookies, I was overeating them. I started to realize that I was no longer in control of my eating. So my addiction was back, but also because I was out of control in my eating and my addiction was back. And even though I was eating keto healthy meals, my snacking or my desserts were over what I should be eating. So I was kicking myself out of ketosis even though I was eating keto friendly everything. My joints started to hurt again. Like my general pain came back. My sleep was disrupted. I wasn't thinking as clearly. I put myself in a bad situation. I was harming my health again by eating too much carb, even though all the carb was coming from keto-friendly foods. Self-soothing is important, but it isn't a replacement for solving your life problems, which is what I wasn't doing. I needed to figure out a way to have some kind of social in my life again, I needed to figure out a way to enjoy my life again. I needed to figure out a way to help my daughter because she was struggling. I actually needed to change something. What I figured out that was causing me to self-soothe the wrong way was that I didn't want to feel bad anymore. By the time this was happening, we had been weeks in this negative story of work, home, and that's all I could do. And it was hurting me. So I was trying to feel good the only way I could think of, but that was hurting me. Because when I avoid looking at what the real problem is, it just keeps happening there in the background. And I'm over here eating stuff, feeling good for 30 seconds, feeling good for a minute while I'm eating whatever I'm eating. But as soon as it's done, I feel, well, not as soon as it's done, but hours later and for many days, I'm feeling bad, struggling to figure out why, because all of this is keto friendly. But Violet, you're overdoing it. Because I was overdoing it. Not wanting to feel sad, not wanting to feel like I was failing my daughter, caused me to eat something or to eat a bunch of somethings that made my body feel worse. And it still didn't change that my daughter and I were not having the happy life that I wanted us to have. It was not a good moment in my life because once again, I'm looking and seeing that, oof, I'm addicted to sugar, and it didn't go away. It didn't disappear because I wasn't eating it. It's still there, and when I overindulge, it shows itself. And Wellness Warrior, that was hard for me to accept that. Here it is. It's back again. It's right there. Look, it's happening. And now it was mad at me. Why did I let myself step there? And I let myself step there because I couldn't see the answer to the real problem that I was living until that point. Because what I really needed to do was look at my situation and change it, which is what I did. I needed to find a way to be more social. And part of what that meant was work less hours so that I could do what I needed to do before the curfew. So I worked less hours, and then my daughter and I would visit whoever we wanted to visit, need to visit, and then I would get back home in time for curfew. I also started doing this, what I'm doing now, being more social on social media. So I started making more videos to explain to the Wellness Warriors how eating healthy keto helped me, right? And it helped me to stick to it because I was focused on learning more about why eating the right way helped me feel better and why overdoing those carbs helped me to feel horrible again, even though they were the healthy carbs, the good carbs. But why did that happen to me? So I learned a lot from that process. And I let myself be sad, which is the other thing. It was a hard 2 years here in Montreal while things slowly, very, very slowly creeped back to normal. And it was a hard 2 years. I think it was even more than 2 years, 2 years and a bit. But I let myself be sad about it. Whenever it was happening, whenever we were back on lockdown, I just let myself be upset that this is going on. And that helped me to get those feelings out without needing to ingest something that was hurting my body. When things are going wrong in our lives, we need to acknowledge it and then deal with our feelings about it and change what we can. I couldn't erase the curfew. I couldn't erase any of the restrictions. What I could do was accommodate with my own schedule. Luckily for myself, I work for myself. But maybe that was part of the reason that it was happening in the first place, because working for myself meant I worked later hours than most people do. The curfew that they put made sense for anyone working 9 to 5, but anybody who works past 5, it didn't make any sense. So I needed to adjust to what was happening so that my life could have some social. When we try to avoid our feelings with food, sex, drinking, or anything else that we might do, the feelings are still there. We get to avoid them, ignore them for a little while we're getting the positive from whatever we're doing. But as soon as the food isn't in my mouth anymore, the negative was back, which explains why I was overeating to the amount that I was overeating. And unfortunately, not only does the pain of the events come back, but then I had to live the pain of my joints hurting again. And of course, all the damage that I'm doing internally. It's not ideal. It's not a way to solve a problem, because I'm not actually solving the problem. When we learn to live the pain in the moment, interestingly, it changes. Me letting myself be sad every once in a while when I hear that the curfew's back, or there's new cases, or when I heard this bad news and I just let myself be sad about it for a little while, it changed how I was feeling about the whole situation, because I let those feelings out. And then I was able to truly engage, whether I was making videos or going to see people or doing any of the other things I decided to do. I took up some other kind of crafting that I started to do, and all the things that I decided to do with my time because I wasn't going out. I'm really happy that I decided to make more videos and focus my attention more on making videos during that period of time, because not only did I learn more about keto, but I was able to meet some of you. Having support when you're trying to accomplish something helps you to see that you don't have to do it alone. And even though the other person might not be going through exactly the same thing, the fact that they hear you and understand that it's hard what you're trying to accomplish really makes it something that you're going to stick to, because it's not in your mind that it's hard. They can see it too. If we're both going through the same thing, then it's obvious that it's hard, because we're both living similarly. That's why I made the Wellness Squad, right? At wellnesssquad.org. It's on the screen. You can join to have support in trying to do what we're doing. And we do it together, support each other, and be able to succeed. And now that we know that if I want to solve a problem, I need to look at the problem and do something that makes the problem less hurtful. That's half of this emotional eating thing, right? The other part is when I celebrate with food. And I have a video talking about how to change that. It's linked on the screen right there. So click on the link and I'm going to meet you over there.